Welcome back, dear students. Today we are going to discuss on the third chapter of DBMS, that is relational DBMS. In the first part, the following topics we are going to cover. First is the structure of relational databases, then database schema, then keys, schema diagrams, features of good relational design, functional dependencies, decomposition using functional dependencies, and what are the normal forms, then functional dependency theory. So start with the first discussion on example of an instructor relation. So this is a view of a table where the instructors having few characteristics like his or her ID, then name, then department name, salary, etc. So every field, if we look that there are different values, that is called the domain. Now coming to the row or tuple, every tuple here you can see that I have underlined. This is one tuple, then next tuple. One by one there are many of the tuples are there. Now every tuple is describing a separate instructor. So every instructor is designated by a unique ID here, that is the first column. Now relation schema and instance. Let's say there is a relation R where there could be many attributes A1, A2 and so on and so forth up to AN. Now what is called a schema? Here the instructor is the schema, and the schema is having this many number of columns. So what are the column names? ID, name, department name and salary. Now what exactly an instance is? This is about the schema that we have defined in this example. Instance is at a particular moment, what are the values for a particular instructor? Means the ID, the name, the department name and salary, etc. If we get the snapshot, that is called the instance. So in mathematically we can tell it like small r and within bracket capital R. Capital R is the relation and R of R, this is denoting the instance. And if we talk about a particular tuple in that instance, that means an element T of relation R is called a tuple and it is represented by a row in that table. Now attributes. Attributes are the characteristics of a particular, let's say in a database there is a table. So the table or relation contains many attributes. So every characteristic of a particular entity is known as attribute. Now for a certain attribute there could have many values. Let's say instructor has many IDs, that is denoting different instructors. So the collection of those IDs is called the domain of the ID attribute. And it can be atomic. Let's say attribute values are normally required to be atomic, that is indivisible. Now there is a very key concept of null value. Null means what? Unknown. The null value causes complications in the definition of many operations. So that will separately deal. Some sub-str function and all other functions, the aggregate functions, that we can't perform those operations on a field which contains null values. So that discussion will be later. Now relations are unordered. In every relation there are different attributes or columns are there. Now they could be ordered or unordered. So here is an example of an unordered relation. You can see the instructor name Einstein and the department name is physics, salary and ID, etc. is depicted here, right? So order of tuples is irrelevant. Tuples may be stored in an arbitrary order. For example, here is the instructor relation. with unordered tuples. Now coming to the concept of database schema. So schema and instance. Here I will be telling you these two things. Instructor, how many attribute it has, let's say the ID, then the name, then the department name, and finally the salary. So these are the different attributes that this particular table instructor will have. So if we write in this way, instructor at within opening and closing parenthesis, if we have this attribute set, then this is the schema definition, we can say. But what about the instance? When we have a particular time, let's say at this moment, these are the values which are present in this particular schema of instructor, then it is called an instance. Now let's talk about the keys. This concept is very crucial and important in the study of database management system. Key is a subset of the entire relation. So it can be represented as key subset R. Firstly, we will talk about the superkey. Superkey is a collection of attributes in a relation R which uniquely identify a tuple in that relation. So in the relation small r of capital R. Now let's take an example of ID in the instructor table, and as well ID and name. Both of these are superkeys of instructor. Now superkey K is a candidate key if K is the minimal subset of the superkey. Now here we had two superkeys, ID and name. So out of these two, ID is minimal. So it can be called as candidate key. And there is no other minimal key available. So ID is the candidate key here. And there could be more than one candidate key. So if there are three minimal subset of the super key, then there could be three different candidate keys, out of which one will be chosen as the primary key. So any one of the candidate key can be termed as primary key, but who takes the decision that which particular minimal subset of the key will be termed as primary key? That decision being taken by programmer, developer, or the DBA, database administrator. So that is how primary key is chosen. Okay, so candidate key and primary key are same, but there could be many candidate keys, out of which one will be selected or termed as qualified as primary key, and that is chosen by programmer, developer, or the database administrator. Now what will happen to the other candidate keys which are not qualified as primary key? They will be termed as secondary key. Okay. Now let's say in relation R there are 5 columns A, B, C, D, E. Out of that, A, B, C are forming super keys. So what will happen to D and E? They are not taking part in the formation of the keys. So D and E will be termed as non-key attribute. Okay. So up to this we understand super key, candidate key, primary key, secondary key, and as well non-key. There are some concepts like composite key. If you are interested, you can learn. Composite key, more than one attribute combinedly is forming a key, that is called a composite key. Then comes singleton key. If a single attribute is forming a key, like here ID, that is a singleton key. So if we come to know about composite key, then we have to know about partial key. Let's say a key contains 2 or 3, more than one attribute, then any subpart of that composite key is called as partial key. So knowing partial key is leading to a concept called discriminator that we have already discussed in the study of weak entity. So there is a subtle difference between discriminator and partial key that we will discuss later, or previously we have discussed. So now the last but not the least, there is the foreign key, concept of foreign key. Foreign key is little different than the candidate key and primary key, because foreign key requires two relation at least to understand the concept, or conceptualizing foreign key is requiring at least two relations. Now, what is the foreign key constraint? Value in one relation must appear in another. So if we have a student table that has a department number, and if we are having another table called department that will also have a department number. So the column in the student table, that is department number, is referencing the department number in the department table. So this is what the foreign key is. Now, referencing relation and referenced relation, these are the two things. Now, what is the referencing relation? I told you about the student table, that is the referencing relation, and I told you about the department table as well. So, student table is referencing and department table is referenced. Okay, so from student table to department table, the reference thing is happening. So references. Okay, so student table is referencing the department table because student table contains the D number, department number it has. Similarly, the department table also has the department number. So the same department number is there in both the tables, so that is how the foreign key comes into picture. Now this is a schema diagram for university database, just for the sake of understanding how the schema diagram is created. Now this is the logical structure. When we talk about the physical schema, then we simply write the schema name, and within opening and closing parenthesis we put the specific attribute name. So this is the diagrammatic view. Okay, and we have all the important entities with their attributes and the relationship between each one of them. So you can just take a note of this particular university database schema diagram. Now, features of good relational design. In case of a good relational design, the instructor and department here, for example, in the same table we have combined it, so which represents the natural join on the relations instructor and department, and combinedly we are forming this particular relation. And here there is repetition of information, and sometimes we need to use null value if we add a new department with no instructor, let's for example. Now, a combined schema without repetition. It is also possible that we are combining two schema, but the attributes are not repeated, or the values as well. So, for example, section class is a schema and section is another schema, and we are combining them together and putting it into a single relation that is called section. So, the section is comprises of these attributes which are borrowed from the two relations before, that is section class and section. This two is giving the attributes or supplying the attributes from itself. Okay, and no repetition in this case, you can see it clearly. Now, what is decomposition? Let's say here I will give an example of employee. This is a particular relation or schema we can say here, and it has these many number of attributes. So I decompose it into two: employee 1, employee 2, and in one we put ID and name, and in another name, street, and city and salary. So name is the employee name. But here, after decomposition, we see that both of these employee table contains name field, and name field is there is a chance that it can have duplicate values. So with same name there could be two person. So in this example you see Kim is a person whose name is occurring twice, or in this particular snapshot or instance, you see here that employee IDs are different and different KIM is there with different address and salary. But if we decompose this relation or this employee relation into two sub relation, employee 1 and employee 2, and after the natural join we get some unwanted or spurious tuple. What are the spurious tuples here? Look at this particular tuple, this one, this tuple, as well as this one. So these two tuples are basically erroneous, means they are spurious tuples, which has been generated from the natural join of these two decomposed sub-relations. And this is not worthy, means it is really pathetic that we get some lossy decomposition here. Now, lossy decomposition means after decomposition of two relations, if we recombine them using natural join, we are getting some new relation whose data is not matching with the first relation which we started decomposing. Okay, so that's all about lossless and lossy decomposition. But if we talk about the lossless decomposition, then the reverse thing happens, means if we decompose the relation R into R1 and R2, then after doing the natural join of R1 and R2, it should give the number of rows which were present in the main relation R. After natural join of R1 and R2 as well, we should get back that same number of tuples with same value. Then it is called a lossless decomposition. And this is the explanation of this lossless decomposition. Here ABC is the relation, it is divided into two parts, and after recombination, means by natural join, it is giving you the same set of data which is matching with the initial relation R. Okay, so these two are same, so no spurious tuple is generated here like before I show you. The normalization theory basically it covers the relation in good form. It basically deals with the functional dependency, decomposition, and multi-value dependency. So let's talk about that. First, we will point functional dependency. There are usually a variety of constraints of the data in the real world. For example, some of the constraints that are expected to hold in university database are: students and instructors are uniquely identified by their ID. Each student and instructor has only one name. Each instructor and student is primarily associated with only one department. Each department has only one value for its budget and only one associated building. So these are the few functional dependency that we define first. Okay, as well as an instance of relation that satisfies all such real world constraints is called a legal instance of the relation. And constraints on the set of legal relations require that the value for a certain set of attributes determines uniquely the value for another set of attributes. And a functional dependency is a generalization of the notation of a key. So to mathematically tell you about this concept, it's very simple that this is the functional dependency. Alpha determines beta. The right side is the determined and the left side is called determinant. So alpha is a determinant and beta is determined. Okay. Now it holds on in a relation R if and only if for any legal relations R of R, whenever any two tuples T1 and T2 of the R agree on the attribute alpha, they also agree on the attribute beta. So what it means? It means T1 alpha that is equal to T2 alpha. That implies T1 beta that equals to T2 beta. Now let's give an example here. The relation R, A and B are the tuples with the following instance of R. These are the values that we have, and on this instance B determines A and A determines B does not hold. So if 1 represent 4, then 4 should always determine 1, but here it is not happening. 5 is also determining 1. So in this case A will determine B, but not B can determine A in this particular example. So what it means? It means alpha is able to determine beta, or A is able to determine beta, but B is not able to determine beta, because for many values of B there is a single A. That is why B determines A is holding, but A determines B is not. Okay, so this is about this discussion on functional dependency in mathematical form. Now we will discuss about the closure of a set of functional dependency. Now what is a closure? Closure is something when if we have a set of functional dependency given, and from where we can infer a new functional dependency. Let's say A determines B, B determines C. So transitively A determines C. This is what we can infer from the given functional dependency set. So the set of all functional dependencies logically implied by F is the closure of F, and that is denoted by F plus. Now keys and functional dependencies. If we have the key, K is a super key for a relation schema R, so K determines R, and K is a candidate key for R if and only if K determines R and for no alpha there is a subset of K and alpha can determine R. So this is the concept of keys and functional dependencies. Some examples are given here in department. So this is one schema which contains this many number of attributes, and we expect these functional dependencies to hold. Here department name can determine the building, the ID can determine the building, but would not expect the following to hold. Department name is determining salary. That is not possible, because in the same department there could be different employees having different salary, right? Now there are use of functional dependencies, so where something satisfies or something holds in a particular dependency set. So for example, a specific instance of his instructor may by chance satisfy name determines ID, but always ID should determine name, because some instance there could be duplicate names whose IDs are unique, right? So but some instance there may be all names are distinct, so in that case name can determine ID as well, but we should not consider that because name could be duplicate. That is obvious thing, so we'll always focus on that. What satisfies is ID determines name, right? So this is use of functional dependencies. Now let's talk about the trivial dependency. Trivial means it's very simple and you should not mention it. Like trivial means ID and name determines ID. Obviously it should, because the left hand side already containing ID and which is supposed to determine another ID, and both are same. Name determines name. This is the trivial. In general, alpha determines beta is a trivial if beta is a subset of alpha. Let's say we have 1 2 3 4 in the left hand side, and that is determining 1 and 2, 1 and 2, right? So this is a trivial. We have 1 2 3 4 in the left hand side. Sorry, 1 2 3 4. So we have this set of values, so that can easily determine the right side. because the left hand side contains the values, that is 1 2 3 4, and the right side is a subset, so obviously left hand side can determine right side. We already talked about this lossless decomposition before, because after natural join, if the subparts R1 and R2 gives us back with all the values of relation R that we already had, then it is called a lossless decomposition. Example is this. This is how the lossless decomposition can be explained, that we have already covered. So that's all. Thank you. Meet you again in the next class. Till then, thank you very much.